Hello all, I am William S. Jagetz, founding principal with Family Financial Management Practice. We are a wealth management firm focused in areas of tax planning and estate planning. Here on the Collector's Life YouTube channel, we talk about issues around legacy planning for art collectors and artists. I want to shout out today this painting. This is by an artist, O'Neil Scott. It is titled Success Amongst Sharks. This is mine, recent acquisition. And O'Neil's a brilliant artist. I love his work. I was lucky to get this because he doesn't work in this small format very much. He does much bigger work, bigger than that, actually. So this was a get. It fits beautifully in the space, and I love the piece. His link will be in the description. You can see more of what he's doing. Today, we are going to talk about buying art, the mechanics of buying art specifically. So, not the esoteric bits about, decision making, what to buy, etc., but the actual mechanics of it. That could be another video. I have to have a guest for that because I feel like that's something that a consultant or someone with some expertise, like a Halima Taha or a Heather Carter, hint, hint. But for today, we're talking about the mechanics of buying art, and specifically the two primary parts of the art market. So there's the primary market and there's the secondary market. In both those spheres, hemispheres as it were, there are a lot of components. So it's not as simple as just one and the other. But that is the dividing break. It's first primary market and then the secondary market. So easiest definition, primary market is where the artist gets paid when the purchase happens. You've bought it from the artist. You've bought it from a gallery that represents the artist. You've gotten it at an art fair, which essentially is from a gallery. Primary market is purchased directly from the artist is one way that happens. Studio visit or a personal interaction or a social media induced transaction are primary market transactions. Secondary market would be an art auction, which we all know of but don't know nearly enough about. Purchasing something directly from a collector or owner, which I don't know that happens a lot. I've never asked another collector to sell me a piece or had another collector offer to sell me a piece or ask to buy something right out of my collection. I can't imagine it never happens. I do think that if it happens, it would happen through a dealer. I have had dealers approach me about works in my collection. To work directly from a collector or owner is a secondary market transaction. Again, that generally would happen through a dealer. Now, this part's a little tricky because we just said that art galleries are primary transactions because they represent the artist, and that artist is selling that work through the gallery. But secondary transactions happen through galleries also because galleries sometimes buy in work. They'll either buy back some work that they sold to a collector who has moved on from their interest in that piece, or they'll acquire that work from some other source and bring it in-house. So you can get a secondary transaction at a gallery, not just as often, actually quite less often, but it does happen. And then there are charity auctions. They're usually silent auctions. Sometimes they're live auctions. They're always fun. Those could be primary transactions or secondary transactions, depending upon who has donated that work to the charity that is running that charity auction. So if the artist participates directly, either by donating or by agreeing to give half of the sale price of the art to the uh, charity. That's how it's done a lot of times now. A lot of organizations are getting away from asking artists to donate their artwork because they're artists. So if the artist donates the work or gives the work and agrees to give half, then that is a primary transaction. At that same auction, though, you could have work that a collector, myself or some other collector, has donated, in which case it is a secondary transaction happening at the exact same auction. Again, I said that part was a little bit tricky. It's not that complicated, though. I'm going to tell you why it's important, why it matters. Secondary market transactions, provenance is very important. With a primary market transaction, you know the provenance. It just came off the easel. That's the provenance. Artist, you. Provenance means the history of ownership of a work of art. Well, I guess it would be of anything, but we're talking about art. So, who had it before you? Who had it before them? Where, when, how did they acquire it? Tracking provenance all the way back to the easel is important, no matter how many hands it's gone through. The more you know about its history, the better. It is important because it's necessary for authentication. If a work is inauthentic, faked, copied, then that will show up in the provenance, potentially. If the work has been stolen or ill-gotten at some point in its history, that could be a problem, because even if you've paid honest money for it with good intention, it's possible that your ownership could come into question. And knowing that the piece has a solid record history of transactions and ownership will save you from having that come upon you as a problem. So in a secondary market transaction, you always want to ask about provenance, and if they don't, they meaning the gallery, the dealer, the collector, the auction house, if they don't satisfy you with their disclosure of the provenance of the piece, you should think hard about whether or not you want to buy it. It could be a problem for you later. So, primary market pays the artist directly. Secondary market, the artist is outside of that transaction. There are instances where primary and secondary transactions happen in the same setting. It's important to know which transaction you're engaged in, and it is important to know the provenance of the art that you're purchasing if it is a secondary market transaction. Now, let's revisit that piece about the artist being out of the transaction. That is how it works generally. However, there is I will refer to it as a movement. It's not necessarily new, but it is picking up steam. Something called resale royalty rights, where artists get paid on secondary transactions some percentage of the profit. This is not automatic. This is not legislated. This is not a general rule, but it can be contractually agreed upon. I think that is how it should be handled. Because it's not a general rule, there's flexibility, and the parties involved can negotiate terms. So, is the percentage back to the artist 15%? Is it 20%? Is it 45%? The seller the artist, the gallery, and the buyer will negotiate those terms. How long does that agreement stay in place? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 25 years? Again, the engaged parties can negotiate those terms. That gives the artist and the collector a lot of flexibility to come to some terms that they like. And even though they need to have those conversations and come to those terms, once they've decided what those numbers are, what those time frames are, you have to have a competent attorney draw a contract to that effect. This is not scribbled on a notebook pad. This is not a handshake deal. Once you've negotiated it, you got to have it contracted by a competent attorney. That way, all the leaks can be filled in. Because as you can imagine, there are things that can go wrong. Probably won't, but we all feel better with a contract in place. Now, why is this a thing? Aside from the fact that we all love artists and we want them to have money so that they can live and continue to make art, it's important to the artists and it's important to the collectors and the general art world. It's important to keep them motivated to act in a way that gives additional value to their work because they will have some remuneration for doing so. I personally think it's a great idea because, this piece of art will increase in value immensely over time and not through anything that I will do to make it do so. It will increase in value because O'Neil Scott will continue to do great work. He will manage his career and his reputation, and he will manage the distribution of his output. So it'll go to collectors, it'll go to institutions, it'll go to corporate collections, and based on that, the value will increase. So it is fair that he should participate in the increased value. So if I sell it and it's profitable, then I should get a piece. If I sell it at a loss because he didn't do what he was supposed to and now nobody wants it, it's a loss for him too. So that's why resale royalty rights, I think, are important. I'm going to have a conversation with some artists, some collectors in another video. We're going to sit and talk about it and get some, varying thoughts and opinions. There are those who think this is something that should be legislated and managed by outside third parties, specifically government agencies. That's a terrible idea, in my opinion, which is right. But, that's something we'll talk about. So, please like, subscribe, share. I appreciate you being here. We're going to talk in future videos about the pieces that we've discussed here because all the things that we talked about are like whole videos, whole episodes in themselves. Purchasing art directly from an artist. That's a whole video because there's ways to do it and there's ways for that thing to go very wrong. Studio visits, social media interactions, all very different transactions. Purchasing art from a gallery. If you've never walked into an art gallery and bought a work of art, then, you may need to know, you might want to know some of the particulars of how those transactions break down, how that representation works, why artists even use galleries, etc. And art auctions is a whole beast unto itself. That'll probably be 2 videos just to go over how that works and how those things happen. And again, we're going to have a whole conversation about artists' resale rights. So stay with us. That's what's coming up. Hit the alert button so that you'll know when the videos post. And again, subscribe, like, and share. Have a great afternoon, and I'll look forward to talking with you again soon.